You know what that sound means? It's another episode of Game for a Movie where we ask, are you game for a movie? My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. I've got an interesting one for you tonight. So, a while back, we did an episode on this movie called Avengers Grimm, which is a mockbuster made by the Asylum Films. It is about Avengers Age of Ultron. It came around at that time. It really is more Avengers, but Avengers Ultron we'll call it because that's where it got released. Well, they have made a sequel, and it is called Avengers Grimm Time Wars. This is from 2018, and I'm going to go more into it, but of course, I've got to talk to you about the beer I'm drinking, as well as I want to kind of go into the history of the Asylum. If that sounds boring, trust me, it's not going to be, I promise. And especially because Avengers Grimm is one of our worst episodes. Like, by far, one of our worst episodes. It's one of the least downloaded, everything like that, because a lot of people just don't know what it is. Trust me, you want to listen to this episode because Avengers Grimm Time Wars is worse than Avengers Grimm and also funnier than Avengers Grimm. So I'm going to go into details about some of that stuff. But first, I got to tell you what I'm drinking. Tonight, it is Montucky Cold Snacks, the unofficial beer of Montana. Montucky Cold Snacks is a light beer. I'm not normally a light beer guy, but compared to something like Bud Light, Coors Light, that kind of thing, I would much prefer a Montucky Cold Snacks. This sounds like an advertisement for them. This is truly one of those light beers that I go out of my way to try to find. It is that good. Plus, they're sold in tall boys, which is great for a light beer. Normally, you don't get the tall boy. It's fantastic. So, as for the Asylum, now we're going to talk about the film studio that produced this. The Asylum we've talked about before because we've done other episodes with them before. Obviously, Avengers Grimm. We also did Atlantic Rim, which is a mockbuster of Pacific Rim. There are plenty more of those. And you're probably thinking to yourself, how the hell does the Asylum have this much money? Well, they are also the ones responsible for the Sharknado films. So, five good money-making films. That's going to lead to a lot of mockbusters. And they are the king of mockbusters. We played a game the last time we did an episode with the Atlantic Rim stuff about I'm going to name a movie. You have to tell me what it's a parody of. So, for example, something like San Andreas Quake. Obviously, San Andreas. So there are plenty more. It's a fantastic episode on Atlantic Rim if you want to go back and find that one. Basically, what they do is they do satire movies, it's parody movies, it's knockoff movies. That's basically what it is of some of the biggest movies that are out. And they do it about the same time that the movie gets released. So it's kind of impressive almost how they are able to release these almost at the exact same time. That being said, none of them are really good. The only ones that have really hit are the Sharknado movies. There's some that maybe you've heard of, but for the most part you haven't. So I'm going to talk about this film, and let me tell you right now, you know none of the actors. You know none of the directors. You know none of the writers. I'm not going to even tell you some of their names because honestly, I know for a fact you don't know them from anything. And if you do, you're lying to me. So Avengers Grimm Time Wars, it sits at an 8% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and there's not enough for a critic score. So 8% as a whole between the two scores. This follows the events of both Avengers Grimm and then the Sinister Squad, which I have not watched, and I did not realize was in the same universe as Avengers Grimm. I should have probably done that one first. It's okay. I got enough that I know kind of what's going on. I don't think these movies are very hard to figure out. Essentially what this is an Avengers team, but it's Grimm fairy tale characters. And more specifically, it's Grimm fairy tale characters that are women that they can put in skimpy outfits and kind of just give you something to look at. They all have powers based on who they are. Yeah, that's all you're getting from this. So, Avengers Grimm Time Wars is a parody of Infinity War. And I think more so, I'm going to call it more so a parody of Endgame, because in Infinity War, they didn't do time travel. This one does time travel. Okay? The beginning of it is a quick semi-recap of the first movie, and it's a run-through of Looking Glass, which is the shield of the Avengers films. Looking Glass is the organization that protects our world from the other realms. This is done ridiculously quickly. I'm not even joking. If the first 5 minutes are supposed to be exposition in a normal movie or like setting the scene, that kind of thing, this is done in 30 seconds. A man breaks through this barrier onto a beach and he is being chased by a woman. The woman has gills, and there's like a random dude that's trying to like help out the guy. Like, what's wrong? What's going on? That kind of thing. This random guy is like mesmerized by her beauty and like is all of a sudden stuck. And she destroys him with a trident. And she hits the trident into the ground, and these random sentries come from the water, and they are chasing Prince Charming. That is the guy who broke through the realm, and more specifically, Prince Charming's ring. She says the phrase, as they are chasing him, she has a wedding to plan. So these sea people, these mermen, start like breaking out, and now the city is on fire. And this is where we get our first look at Looking Glass. From Looking Glass, we get the idea of who these characters are that broke through the realm. The first one is Charles Charming III, or Prince Charming. And the other person is Magdalena the Mad, or Magda the Mad, from Atlantis. She is essentially, it's kind of a parody at this point as well of Justice League, in the fact that she is essentially Aquaman, but just the female equivalent of it. Looking Glass is run by Alice, as well as Hatter, obviously the Mad Hatter, and these are characters from Alice in Wonderland. And they basically have figured out that even though they were going to send her back, they need to wake up one of these people in order to take down Magda the Mad. And that person is Snow White. And Snow White, she is the one that is supposed to marry Prince Charming. While they're kind of explaining what's happening, we go to Magda the Mad's lair, and Magda's mermen are bringing a guy to her. And this guy gets thrown in front of her, and you're pretty sure. So in the first Avengers Grimm, the big bad was Rumpelstiltskin. And Rumpelstiltskin was played by Casper Van Dien. In this one, it's an absolute nobody. And you kind of get that, okay, this is Rumpelstiltskin. They don't exactly say that right away, but you just kind of pick up on the fact that it's Rumpelstiltskin, especially if you watch the first one. I don't think you need to at this point. And like, I'll go into more stuff about that, but for the most part, I was a little worried that I had done Avengers Grimm a long time ago. And so I was a little worried that I was not going to be caught up. So I thought about torturing myself and watching it again. You don't need to. I don't feel like I missed anything. Rumpelstiltskin reveals to Magda the Mad that Snow White is in town. Also, it comes out that he was murdered. So this is not the first Rumpelstiltskin. The first one, like I said, was Casper Van Dien. This is the second one. We also get through them talking that Charming has to marry Magda to break the enchantment. And basically, Rumpelstiltskin says, I will help, but you just give me Atlantis. And she's kind of laughing it off, like, why do you want Atlantis? And he's like, no, like, you're not going to need it. Once you marry Charming, you're going to own the entire land. You are going to be the queen, the ruler of the land. I just want Atlantis. And so she kind of agrees. And there's like this unspoken plan. Rumpelstiltskin is going to get Charming to Magda. Now we are at this random warehouse in the middle of the city, we assume. And Charming is there. And there's a bunch of mermen after him. And this comes across, this is one of those like terribly choreographed fight sequences. And even more so, what's rough about it is that it's like one of those one merman at a time attacks. And there's like a million jump cuts. And finally, it's like down to the last two. And you're just like, oh, God, please. They're not going to hit each other, are they? They come at Charming. Charming makes a miss. And they hit each other. It's that kind of fight scene. So, you know exactly what you're getting with this movie at this point. And when the city was on fire, it's terrible CGI fire. The entire city looks fine except for just these like little spots that are just like horribly rendered smoke stacks kind of thing. So, that's what it is. After he defeats the mermen, he runs off, and we go back to Looking Glass. And Looking Glass, Alice and Snow White are talking about the Broken Realms and mirrors, and basically where Charming has been. Charming has been gone for a while. Like, this is he's been missing. So Snow is kind of like, where the hell has he been? He has been stuck in Atlantis. And Alice is also talking with Snow about she needs to get the team back together because she's not gonna be able to defeat Magda on her own. So she needs to go find Sleeping Beauty and Red. Obviously, Sleeping Beauty is Sleeping Beauty. Red is Red Riding Hood. I told you, these are Grimm fairy tales. You know these characters, but they just use shorthand sometimes. So I'm just giving you that more so. I think you guys can figure it out. But just in case you didn't, that's what it is. And as we mentioned them, it goes back to the warehouse, and Sleeping Beauty and Red are at the warehouse, and they both see that all these mermen are down, and they're trying to figure out who did it. And one of these mermen is not quite dead. He gets up, and Sleeping Beauty tries to put him to sleep with magic, like sleep, kind of thing. And it doesn't work. And this is a recurring thing that Sleeping Beauty's powers aren't really working the same as they used to. But it's okay, because Red has a bow and arrow and shoots the merman straight through the eyes, and he's gone. Snow White shows up and proves that she isn't dead. They both thought that she was dead. Turns out she wasn't. She has just been on ice, and she slept through the invasion, and Sleeping Beauty / Sleepy is pissed about this. But it's okay. They're going to figure it out. We also then get some exposition about why this ring is so important. The people of the land that Prince Charming is a prince over have put all the power into this ring so that he can split the power between him and the fairest in all the land. Which, you know who the fairest in all the land is? It's Snow White. So this is where this came from. This is why this power in this ring is so important. Part of Rumpelstiltskin's plan, Magda makes an explosion happen in the middle of the city and knows that Charles is the heroic type. He's going to show up. He does. Guess what? He goes and follows the explosion just like everybody thought he would. And Magda is just like, you've got to marry me. And he says one of these lines. It's pretty good. And this is one of the first times he speaks. He goes, Magda, you should know there are plenty of fish in the sea. It's cheesy, but it's kind of funny. And especially because his voice is like the Old Spice commercial guy. You know, like the I'm on a horse, that kind of thing. That's his character's voice the entirety of the movie. And at first, this is the first time you're really hearing it. It's hysterical. By the end of the movie, you just hate this person and you're not cheering for them at all. So while Magda is distracted with Charles and sends mermen after him, Snow and her crew show up. And immediately Charles is just distracted by Snow, and they're like looking in each other's eyes in the middle of this battlefield, by the way. There's people fighting around them. This is their first time seeing each other in years, and they're just distracted with each other and not fighting anybody. Magda gets angry, fires her trident, blows them apart. Charles ends up on the other side of some wreckage, and Rumpelstiltskin is there and able to put him to sleep. He also steals a hair from Charming, and he drags him towards Looking Glass. This is part of his plan. So he's going to drag him towards Looking Glass. So for the rest of the fight, Snow kind of figures that her, Sleeping Beauty, and Red are kind of outnumbered. So they retreat. They're going to go back to Looking Glass. They don't get there first. First is Charles with Rumpelstiltskin. And it looks like Charles has turned the tables on Rumpelstiltskin. He has him tied up, gagged, and basically brings him into Looking Glass because he wants to show that he has got Rumpelstiltskin. They're going to send him back through the gateway back to his realm. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what's going on here because we saw Rumpelstiltskin grab his hair. We know he has his hair. And even though we don't know what the powers are for Rumpelstiltskin, we know there are powers. And the fact that he grabbed one of his hairs makes it pretty obvious that these two are now the opposite. So Rumpelstiltskin was able to make himself look like Charles. Charles now is trapped by Rumpelstiltskin and looks like Rumpelstiltskin. And so, because Alice got fooled, she had kicked up the gateway. Now, Rumpelstiltskin is able to knock out the Hatter and knock out Alice. And it just so happens that our crew gets there at the same time, Snow, Sleepy, and Red. And Rumpelstiltskin escapes through the gateway. Also at the same time, in crappy slow motion, Snow, Sleepy, and Red get sucked through. But this was, again, part of his plan. Rumpelstiltskin didn't actually go through the gateway. He was holding on and didn't get sucked through. He just wanted to get rid of those three. And Charming, in like a display of heroism, throws the ring to Snow. But of course, this ring is intercepted by Rumpelstiltskin. And after they get sucked through the gateway, he's able to turn it off, and Magda sneaks in and knocks out Charming. Magda sends a dozen mermen into the gateway and says she wants the gateway destroyed so they can't come back. This is said at this point. I just want this to be known. This is a part foreshadowing of the rest of this movie. She says, I'm sending these mermen through, and I want the gateway destroyed so they can't come back. Okay? Right? We're all in agreement. This is what was said. This is all that was said. So now her, Rumpelstiltskin, a couple other mermen, and they're dragging Charming away. So far in this movie, Charming, he's held his own in some fights, don't get me wrong. But so far, for majority of the movie, he's either been chased or he's been knocked out. That sucks. Alice had woken up and she is like totally visible. She's hiding behind a couch in like the most obvious spot. But Magda and her mermen don't see her. Rumpelstiltskin sees her and gives her a wink. After Rumpelstiltskin gives her like a wink, we get this blue CGI flash on the screen. And this blue CGI flash is the transition thing between past, present, and future. And so whenever it happens, you got to imagine there's just some wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. It takes us to Snow White, who wakes up and sees a castle. She also is like realizing what this castle is. She looks at this tree and she realizes her dwarves are near. So she needs to go look for them. Also in these same woods is Red. And Red is a psychopath. So Red's powers, because like all of these have powers. So like Snow's powers are kind of like frozen powers, you know, that kind of thing. Like she can make ice kind of thing. Sleeping Beauty can like put people to sleep. Also something else that comes around later that I'm not going to mention now. Rumpelstiltskin can obviously shapeshift and do other things. Red is just armed to the teeth with weapons. She is the Punisher. Because she's in these woods, she finds this group of mermen, and she just has these 2 grenades and throws them and kills half of this group of mermen. Then she pulls out like 2 guns and slow motion dives and shoots the rest of them. And we don't see them die. We're just assuming that she nails like every shot. So she's like the Punisher / when she has the bow and arrow, it's obvious she's trying to be like the Hawkeye. That's who she is. The grenades and the guns are hysterical because they do not come back at all. Like, do not come back. And then finally we get to Sleepy. Sleepy is in a glass coffin. And this glass coffin is being watched over by a merman. And she is not okay because she's been in a glass coffin before. This is part of the thing. She doesn't have her powers, and she also has like this trauma because, you know, she was asleep for forever in a glass coffin. So she doesn't handle tight spaces well. And she can't use her powers to get through this. Luckily, she was given a knife earlier from Red, and she starts to like chip away at the box when the merman's not looking. And it's quiet enough, apparently, that the merman doesn't hear her chipping away at the box. Blue flash, we're back to the present. And at Looking Glass, a couple mermen disable the gateway, which is just one PC and like a special power core. And they're taking the power core, they're going to bring it to Magda the Mad. Alice is like following them with the power core, And the Hatter, who also somehow got away from the mermen that were supposed to be looking through Looking Glass, sees her and lets her know that he has a present for her. The present is the medicine she needed earlier, as well as a watch. And this watch he attaches to her wrist. Okay. We have no clue what this means at this point. That's okay. Magda now, at her place, gets the power core. Also, Charles is brought in and lets Magda know that he will always be thinking about Snow. There is no way he is ever going to marry Magda. There's just no way. He will always think about Snow. Whether she doesn't make it or not, he will be thinking about her. And obviously this hits a nerve. And so she says to take him away to the dungeon. Rumpelstiltskin, saw everything from his hiding spot and promises that he will convince Charming to marry her. Promises her. This is going to happen because I want Atlantis. This is not the hardest script to follow. We all kind of know where everything's going, that kind of thing. And at this point, we know also that Rumpelstiltskin's got a plan. And I don't know what it is. I don't think he wants just Atlantis, but we all know this at this point, that it's probably not just he wants Atlantis. So he has a plan. We'll see how it works. We'll see how it goes. All right, before we go back to the past, and before we learn more about Rumpy's plan, we're going to take a quick little time to shout out. I didn't think anybody was going to guess this bad movie. And for the most part, a lot of people haven't heard of this movie. I get it. It's okay. So what I put out for our podcast guessing game was that I want you to tell me a character that's not a superhero and explain why they would make a good superhero. Honestly, all three I couldn't decide between who to give the shout out to. So I'm going to shout out all three of them. First, we've got Watch It If You Can podcast. They've had their promo played through the show a couple times at this point. They said Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm, which I don't know if he would be a good superhero, but their point was a superhero that will save people but also complain about it. They need help? No, I just ordered the soup. I can't do a good Larry David. It's fine. Also giving a shout out to Totally Rad Christmas. They said Santa Claus, or more specifically, Rad Santa. Okay, I'm with that. And then finally, Shoot the Flick, another one of our favorites. They said Ash from Evil Dead. I'm down with that. I think he is a superhero at this point, right? Don't we all? So yeah. Those three get a shout out for giving me some of the best answers about which character isn't a superhero, but you think would make a good one and why. That's also a question you can keep going if you want. So if you guys have an answer that you think should be on there, go ahead. Send it to our Twitter /X/ whatever the fuck we're calling it, at Game for a Movie. You can also send it to us at other places too. I'd love to hear from you what you think is a good answer for a superhero that's not a superhero. Take a Montucky sip, and we are back to Avengers Grimm Time Wars. So now we are back in the past and in the woods, and Snow comes across 7 tiny little graves. And this is presumably the dwarves. Oh no, her dwarves are dead. And so I feel like this was just a way to like mention them, but not really bring them in. I don't know. It feels weird that we didn't get the dwarves. I think this would actually been kind of fun, and maybe, I don't know if it would have helped the movie, but at an 8% Rotten Tomato score, it definitely wouldn't have hurt that much. Well, they're all gone, and like on their graves is a different weapon of their choice, like their axes and their swords and that kind of stuff. And right by this is the only talking merman in the movie. This is like the merman captain, and he has been waiting for Snow White. He knows this is where she was going to go. So this is our one-on-one fight between Snow White and the only talking merman, the merman captain. So she makes a dagger of ice real quick, and it doesn't affect him at all. So she grabs like the axe or the sword. I don't know which one she grabs. This is done with 1,010,000 cuts. I don't know which one she grabs. I just know she has a weapon. So she they're like fighting, like, oh, stab, 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 break apart, throw, grab another weapon, that kind of thing. Like it's that kind of fight. It ends with the merman diving at her, and she jumps out of the way, but grabs a spear from one of the graves and stabs him with it. So the merman captain easily taken care of. So that's all we get in this flashback to the past. So Blue Flash, we are back in the present. And Magda wants to know how Rumpelstiltskin will convince Charming, and she's starting to question him. And we all kind of are at this point. It's pretty obvious he's going by the seat of his pants. So he looks at one of the mermen and he goes, "How good an actor are you?" And has this merman throw him in the prison with him. So now Rumpelstiltskin and Charming are in the jail cell together. And Rumpelstiltskin calls himself Reuben so that Charming doesn't know what's up. So Rumpelstiltskin is going to befriend Charming, and this is part of his plan on how he's going to lure Charming to marry Magda. And basically he asks, "What are you in for?" And Charming gives this long explanation of what happened. It was his and Snow's wedding day, and basically Charming got told that something was happening in Atlantis and he needed to go down there and help. So he was kind of like, okay, I'm going to help. I'm going to go down there. And Magda trapped him in Atlantis for years. And so this is why he's now caught, because Magda wants his ring. Magda wants to marry him. And Rumpy knows all this. This is not knowledge that he's gained for the first time, but he's just trying to get Charles into this place where he trusts Reuben. So then Reuben says to Charles, that he's working with Alice and that he's a double agent. He's kind of pretending to get Magda what he wants, but he also is a double agent working with Looking Glass to kind of bring Magda back to her own realm. But as far as we can tell, it seems like Charles believes him. It also feels like he wants the ring and wants to marry Charles so that he can control all the land. This is not official or anything like that, but that's just kind of what it feels like at this point. And now we go to Looking Glass, same time. Hatter gives the medicine and her watch, and this watch makes her able to shrink like Ant-Man and kick the crap out of the mermen. So she's able to kick the crap out of these mermen that are at Looking Glass so that they can try to figure out how to get the gateway back open so they can get their Avengers Grimm team. Because they can't get the gateway open, they are having a hard time trying to locate where the girls are and everything like that. And so Alice asks the Hatter if he's familiar with time travel and if there's anything he can do. And he said he's only used to the hallucinogenic type. So Alice gets him to make a special tea to try to find them. She also says she is going to find the Queen. And we all know that's the Queen of Hearts. Back to Magda's lair. And Rumpy has made Charming depressed as hell. And this is part of his plan. He wants to make him depressed so that he has something to live for. And that something to live for, he's going to make sure it's Magda. This is all said because a merman came in and pulled Rumpy out of there. And Magda kind of had a heart-to-heart, not a heart-to-heart, but threatened him. And was just like, "What's your game? What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I've made him depressed as hell. Now I'm going to make him see that he has something to live for, which is Magda." And so she's kind of like, "Okay, I'm still weary, but it sounds okay. I'll send you back in there." When he gets back in there, he immediately tells Charming that Snow is alive. If that was his plan to get him depressed, again, this is what I'm saying. Though the screenplay is easy to figure out and you know exactly what's going to happen, some of his moves don't make sense at all. So I'm kind of confused when it's like, oh, I'm going to make him depressed. I'm going to give him something to live for. Now I'm going to ruin that by saying, hey, Snow's alive. I just don't follow it. I don't see what his game is at this. All right, Blue Flash, we're back in the past. And Red is once again hunting mermen. And she kills 3 of them with 1 arrow from her bow and arrow. The only thing that makes me laugh about this is when the guys fall, because they do this scene where you see behind the mermen and you see them all fall one way or the other. The thing that's funny to me is that, like, normally it's one of those things where it was from far away and it's like a ridiculous shot, that kind of thing. She's like 5 feet in front of them. They had to know this was going to happen. Like, they had to see her shooting straight in front of them through the three of them. Red is also reconnected with Snow. We haven't seen how that happened, but all of a sudden they're together again. And this is a part I questioned that they actually did an okay job explaining after this. Red has gone on like this killing spree and has killed like a bunch of mermen. And she's like, originally Magda said there was only a dozen mermen sent into the gateway, and they've killed at least like 20. And that's what I was thinking at this point. I was just like, okay, they've killed so many of these people. So she said I sent a dozen, maybe she sent more, whatever. No, it actually comes out that Magda is sending more to kill them because she just wants to kill them. She wants them to be dead. She can't live with the fact that they may come back. So she's keeping the gateway open. And that's what I don't understand. Like, close the gateway, destroy it. They can't get back. If they can't get back, they can't save the day. But she's kept it open because she keeps sending them back to kill them. On to Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty has chunked through the box, and there's now a hole, and she is able to get the merman watching over her. She basically is able to control him with her power. She like blows out the window, or the chunk she made, like, and now he's able to just open the box. And he's just standing there in front of her, and she just punches him and knocks him out. She also finds that this guy has a grenade, so he's like, she's like, perfect. This is a way to get the attention of Red and Snow. So she just throws the grenade up in the air. And those two are able to figure out, hey, it's Sleepy. Okay, they can reconnect. Blue Flash, we're back in the present. Magda grabs Rumpy again from the room. And now he has 1 hour to make it happen. She is pissed. And Rumpy's like, okay, I can do this. I just need a little more time to prep it before this hour. So Magda walks away. Rumpy's out of the prison cell. And on Rumpy's shoulder, Alice shows up because, you know, she's tiny. She talks with him and finds out that Rumpy and the Queen of Hearts run the underworld. And he also mentions to her that, like, he's getting caught. Like, he doesn't have an actual plan. And so he's going to help Alice get to the core and Charming. And so Alice is like, great, cool, this is awesome. Thank you for helping me. They're going to get the core. So Rumpy leads the way. It's a trap. Rumpy set up Alice, and Alice is now in the lair of Magda. But luckily, she has her watch. She's able to shrink. She's able to get away, run out the window. So again, we don't know what Rumpy's tricks are. We don't know who he's helping. We don't know what's going to happen. Okay. So, yeah. Rumpy's still the question mark. He's the oddball. We don't know what happens. We know what everybody else is doing. We don't know what he's doing. So, Blue Flash back to the past, and our crew finds Sleepy. This is great. And they also happen to find these mermen that just got out of a portal. They're able to kill them and jump into the portal and escape to wherever that portal was. This is the future. And they are at Looking Glass of the future. The world is basically on fire, and Looking Glass is kind of like shuttered down at this point. There's not much happening. One of the things I'm going to talk about right now is if you read a description of this movie. So I want to read you from the IMDb page what this movie is. From the IMDb page. When Rumpelstiltskin tries to take over Earth once and for all, the Avengers Grimm must track him down through time in order to defeat him. Maybe I'm in the wrong mindset here. So when you say that you're trying to track him down through time, I imagine that you were like chasing after him through various time periods. Very like Avengers Endgame, where you got the different stones from different time periods. And it's okay if you don't go to a ton or anything like that, especially because this is supposed to be cheap, that kind of thing, whatever. This is the only other place they go, and it's just the same set just a little more distressed. So they are at Looking Glass of the future. And it just so happens Charles is there. And he falls to his knees when he sees Snow because he thought she was dead. And he lost his will to fight. And he gave up. And he married Magda. And Magda now controls the land. He also mentions that Magda kept sending mermen through the gateway to kill them. That's why she never destroyed the gateway. Also there is Alice. Alice has been kind of working with Charles to try to fight her, but because the Hatter died, Alice is now pretty crazy. And she's like wearing his hat. She's just kind of cuckoo. You know, she's the Mad Hatter now instead of just Alice. And so it's just Alice and Charles are at Looking Glass. When Magda married Charles, she kind of threw him off to the side because now she has his ring. She doesn't need anything more. Charles gives Snow a map of Magda's lair. And basically, they're going to try to sneak in. They're going to try to find how she uses the gateway. And then they're going to try to get back to the present. This is where my mind started to wander on this movie. Because one of the characters, Magda, wears all leather. Like the entirety of the movie, she wears all leather. And it made me realize that there's a lot of leather in this movie. Like a lot of leather. But the thing that made me think about this was there was like a swimming part. Do you know how weird it is to swim with leather? Like I've never done it myself because I've been told that it's crazy. But yeah, she just wears leather all the time, even when she's swimming. Very strange, but whatever, it's fine. In this future, Rumpy is still a prisoner, but he's like no older, even though both Charles and Alice had like old people makeup on, and also Magda's kind of like also young looking. Using the map that Charles gave them, the Avengers Grimm, they sneak into the prison, and they need to convince Rumpy to help them out and get the gateway. They also need to figure out how to open it. And Rumpy's like, no, I'm not betraying her. I'm not betraying her. She sees everything I see. She's like in my mind. She's in my head. And Sleepy uses her magic to convince Rumpy to get the power core quickly and quietly. He gets caught immediately. But luckily, Red is following and kills one of the mermen that caught him. So, you know, quick and easy. Boom. Red just once again killing people. Blue Flash, we're in the present, and Alice is trying to get into her own facility of Looking Glass, but Hatter won't let her in because he's the Hatter and he's crazy. And she convinces him to let her in. This was something I thought was going to be a bigger deal. No, it wasn't. It just was a joke, I guess, because the Hatter be the Hatter. And it's tea time. And so Alice originally said she wasn't going to drink the tea like earlier in the movie. No, she's now going to drink the tea. She needs to figure out where these girls are. And Hatter could only go to the past. He couldn't see the future. And the description, the reasoning behind it was that Hatter doesn't exist in the future. So Alice agrees to drink the tea because she thinks maybe she'll be able to find them in the future. And this is basically like dream walking. This is basically what happens in Multiverse of Madness, which is kind of interesting because I think this was before Multiverse of Madness. I can't remember my timeline exactly. This is 2018. So let me just do a little quick Multiverse of Madness. That was 2022. So yeah, this was 4 years before Multiverse of Madness. And she basically does dream walking, where she's able to take over herself somewhere in the timeline because of magic tea. Sorry. Okay, yeah. So she's dream walking, and she ends up as the crazy Hatter Alice in the future. She just happens to be right place, right time. Which is great because she was able to talk to Charles. Even though Charles is like a sad sack, she was able to talk to Charles and figure out that they were there. They're getting the power core. They're coming back. Rumpy was able to get the power core at Magda's lair. Blue Flash, we're back to the present. And Reuben Rumpy is saying that Charles is about to get married to Snow. This is great. Snow saved the day. They're about to get married. Magda, no big deal. not part of the picture anymore. So all he has to do is walk down the aisle. And Charles calls him a good friend, and he's like, good friend, thank you. And that definitely affects him. He definitely feels something. Blue flash to the future. Alice is setting up the gateway and can use the power core they received. But Magda of the future was able to, through Rumpy's mind, see that they were there. And so she breaks into the looking glass again. And she's able to kill Alice. She found out from Rumpy, and she has him on like a leash. This movie's very kinky. She has him on a leash. Magda is also able, with her trident, to freeze the girl and threatens to send them to the Ice Age because Snow will like the Ice Age. That kind of joke. Rumpy is able to sneak off at this point, and Charles is hiding. And Charles says to him, you had a chance to choose heroism once, but you chose villainy before. You have another chance to choose heroism again. And remember how I said, like, calling him a good friend, it kind of resonated with him, that kind of thing. That exists in this timeline. So Rumpy definitely feels it a little more. So Charles stands up, goes out to Magda, and basically gets attacked by her trident and is like dying in the process. But it's to buy time so that Rumpy can use the gateway and send them all back. Sends them back, blue flash, to present day, where Charles is being forced to marry Magda while Snow is tied up and is watching on. I think you guys are as smart as me. I would hope you're as smart as me. It's obvious that this is Rumpy as Snow. And that it's not really Snow tied up, because we never saw it anything like that. At the same time at Looking Glass, Alice wakes up, present day, and has taken the medicine that Hatter has made for her. The Avengers Grimm also show up to Magda's lair, and they break into the wedding. And Snow says, get your scaly ass away from my man. So she goes to take on Magda. Sleepy and Red are going to take on the mermen. Sleepy is awful at this. And that's kind of like the whole bit, is that Sleepy's just not as good as the other two girls at this. She's okay. But like Red has murdered everyone. And I guess this is supposed to be like Black Widow, kind of thing. But Red has just like murdered everyone. Snow is able to take out Magda easily, but then it becomes a who is who moment. Because Snow ends up in the same frame as Rumpy as Snow, and like Charles has like, oh, but which one is the real Snow? That kind of thing. And real Snow figures out the solution quickly. She goes, fuck this, and like goes to kiss Charles, and like big ol' sloppy kiss kind of thing. Charles immediately falls down to one knee to propose to real Snow, but Magda once again gets pissed, blasts him apart with her trident. They're at separate parts now, but they can save the day if Charles finishes the proposal to Snow. So they both slow motion dive and like slide on the floor to each other. And he's like reaching out the ring. She reaches out her hand and he slides the ring on her finger. And it's no from Magda kind of thing. And yeah, there you go. That's it. He places the ring on Snow's hand. The spell is broken. Magda loses. Magda freaks out, tries to kill Charles, but he easily avoids it because she's just trying to stab him with a trident, and he's just kind of like rolling on the ground like, nope, nope. But he's also like, I can't hit a woman. Snow steps up and goes, but I can, and punches Magda straight in the face. Magda then like screams to her mermen to destroy the city. So the mermen sprint out the door, and they're about to destroy the city, and they are immediately met by Alice, who has taken her medicine. And she is giant. This is the Ant-Man giant version. And steps on all of them with like 2 steps. Then giant Alice grabs Rumpy and just flicks him into the ocean. He's gone. So the Avengers Grimm and Charles are forcing Magda back into the ocean. And they just so happen to get there at the same time Rumpy has just crawled out of the ocean. And Magda realizes he was trying to pull a fast one. He was trying to be Snow so that Charles marries him as Snow and he can control all the land. So she wants revenge. She grabs Rumpy with her help of her mermen, and they drag him to Atlantis with her. So they're now back in Atlantis. Great, cool, awesome. Immediately goes into a wedding scene. This is Snow and Charles's wedding. And they have it on the beach, of all things, like right next to the ocean. You just dealt with like mer people. You just dealt with like the Queen of Atlantis, and you're gonna get married by the ocean. Okay, I mean whatever. Okay, whatever. At the end of this scene, Snow is just kind of like, "Are you gonna send us back to our realms?" And Alice recruits all of them to Looking Glass. She said, "The world's going to need the Avengers Grimm." And she actually says it. So this is the first time it's actually said. Roll credits. This is the end of the movie. That is Avengers Grimm Time Wars. Yeah. Much worse than the first one by a lot. I have described this many a time. It is porn with a worse script. That is what it is. Because like all the girls wear like skimpy outfits. There's the leather clad. There's the parts where Rumpy's on a leash. Charming is kind of like busting through a shirt kind of things, you know, that kind of stuff. It is porn, essentially, just with a worse script and no actual nudity. Yeah. Let me give a rating because otherwise I'm going to forget, and then I will talk about the points I actually have about this movie. The rating is going to be 0.25 out of 5. 0.25 Broken Realm mirror pieces. That's what I'll give it. 0.25 Broken Realm mirror pieces. It is not a good movie. It is not. There are some parts that are worth laughing at just because it's like awkward and goofy, but it's not worth laughing at because you actually are enjoying what you're watching. This is a terrible movie. It's what I come to expect from Asylum. So I'm not going to like harshly grade it and say, "Oh, wow, this is so bad because blah, 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 blah." It's an Asylum film. I know what I signed up for. I've done the first one. I know it's going to be bad. I've done Atlantic Rim. I know it's going to be bad. These are cheap movies that if they turn a profit, it's easy to turn a profit because they were made on a shoestring budget. So all they have to do is make their money back plus like another 100 grand and they're happy. And they can make the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. They can probably make, for a successful mockbuster, 3 more movies. That's how cheaply these movies are made. And that's okay. I'm not mad at the Asylum for doing that. But I also have to hold it at the same level and go, because they do that, these are not going to be good movies, and I know that. So that's the reason why I say, even though I'm giving it a 0.25, it's not the worst 0.25 that I've watched for this podcast. It's not a good movie. I'm not telling anybody to watch this. But knowing that it's ridiculous, knowing how much alcohol I had going into it, I knew I was going to laugh at it for the sheer fact that it's awful. It's like the Sharknado movies. And that is an exact fitting representation of the Asylum. The Sharknado movies, you know they're going to be trash. You know it. But there's something so goofy about them that they're kind of fun to just turn on and turn your brain off for. They're not good. They're never going to be good. The acting, meh. The costumes, meh. The CGI special effects, ugh. The fact that they go to two different places for the Time Wars that they're going to be chasing Rumpelstiltskin through in this description of the movie. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's not quite as disappointing, though, as Multiverse of Madness, where you think you're going to go through multiple multiverses and they spend 5 seconds in each and just end up really in like 2 or 3. You know? This one, yes, it's disappointing. They only ended up in 2. But you can expect that from a movie like this. In Multiverse of Madness, you kind of want hey, we're going to go to all these different universes. We're going to see all these different things, and it just ends up being 3 universes. Okay, cool, great, whatever. Ugh. But yeah, so, and then really, actually, thinking about it, I mean, besides the scene where they go through like 40 in a second, do they really go to more than just 2 multiverses? I can't even remember. That's how it sucks because it's Sam Raimi, and I love Sam Raimi, but that's how little that movie kind of made to me. I can't remember how many universes they went to. It's disappointing like that. This one, yeah, it's disappointing, but I would almost be a little more offended if they tried to force another time period into this, because I just know it would be a terrible CGI dinosaur that's chasing after them. So yeah, you can say this is a terrible movie. You can. I wouldn't expect anybody to say different. However, it's goofy and it's kind of fun in the weirdest way, because you know you're signing yourself up for a terrible movie. And 8% on Rotten Tomatoes is right. I don't care what anybody says. It's right. That is a good score for this film. How is this an 8% film that I would watch again while drunk with friends versus an 8% film that is not as fun? I don't know. I'm trying to think of what to compare it to. And the only thing I can keep thinking about is Multiverse of Madness. I would rather watch this drunk with friends than trying to make my friends sober watch Multiverse of Madness. Is that a hot take? I don't even know if that's a hot take. And I love Marvel films. It's not that I wouldn't watch it again, but I think this one has more of that goofy factor, especially when you watch it with friends. And so that's why it's disappointing that it's just me talking about it. But yeah, so I think that this film is not good. I don't recommend it, but I could easily drunk watch this again with some friends to laugh at. It's kind of the like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, The Room, all these movies that are terrible, but you kind of want to watch it because intrigue and because you know it's going to be bad, so you can laugh at it a little more. I don't know. That's kind of my thought on this one. And probably what my thought is about all these Asylum films. I could talk about all these Asylum films because you're not going to any of these and going, oh, this is going to be great. You're going to these and looking at them and going, oh, yes, Mega Piranha. That's exactly what I want. You know what that is. What's the other one they have? There's another one. Oh, The Fast and the Fierce. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what it is. It's a cheap mockbuster that honestly sounds kind of fun to sit through. And it also, remember how I was saying, like, they happen to be coming out at the same time? It also leads to some fun things where they release one thinking that this is going to be like the next big thing. So they have a movie called American Battleship, which is a parody of Battleship. And we all know how Battleship did. This one probably also not great. But that's what happens when they try to guess on some of these too. There are a bunch of Asylum films that I kind of want to do for the podcast, but I don't know if people actually like when I do them because they're ridiculous. I don't know. There are some things that I think would be really fun to cover, like Meth Gator. That sounds amazing. It's a parody of Cocaine Bear, obviously, if you couldn't guess that. There's some things that I feel like would be fun to watch with this, but maybe that's also a problem. Maybe that's also what I shouldn't do, because I do kind of enjoy the cheesiness, the stupidness of these movies. Maybe that's why it didn't go down so well the first time we tried to do this. I don't know. I'm speaking up my ass on this stuff. I don't know. My main problems with this movie are the acting, the writing, the everything with this movie. Everything. Everything was bad with this movie. I don't like that they only went to 2 time periods, and both of the time periods were set pieces we already kind of saw, or like, so like one of them was Looking Glass, just destroyed, or Magda's Lair, which was the same as it was before, that kind of thing. Or they went to the castle, and there's only really one room you saw of the castle. The rest of the time, you just saw red and snow in the woods. Cheap, easy. Go to the woods, film a couple of scenes. This is how they keep costs down. It makes it disappointing when those are the only places we went to, though. I do want to talk about something positive about this, though. I think it is very unique that they saw Avengers coming out and they said, okay, we need our own Avengers. We're going to do Avengers Grimm. It's horrible execution. These are not, and especially things like the powers and stuff like that. Some of this needs a little more like refinement on that. But I do love the fact that they said, okay, we need our own Avengers. Let's go fairy tales. Done and done. I think that's a lot of fun. I think that adds something to it. I like that our crew is like Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Red Riding Hood. Obviously, again, I think it could have been better. I even like Rumpelstiltskin as a bad guy. Magda, I have no clue what that is except for just Little Mermaid. That's the only thing I got because Little Mermaid wasn't a Grimm fairy tale, but it was a fairy tale. So, like, yeah, I think they could have done better with, like, that as a villain. But Rumpelstiltskin, I think, first one and this one, kind of a fun villain to have. Even though, again, execution, not great. That's Avengers Grimm Time Wars. If there are certain mockbusters you want me to cover on future episodes of Game for a Movie, please let me know, especially things like Asylum. Again, they're dumb, but it is very much a movie where I can just like kind of get drunk before and watch. Yeah, I'm down for that. So let me know if there's any other mockbusters you think I should cover. What else I should cover this year. I technically teased this beforehand, but it's going to come out next. The Love Guru is coming. I have it recorded. I need to edit it. It's basically just, I did this because the Thunderbolts came out this week, and it was a team-up movie. So that was my idea, was team-up movies. So why not cover Avengers Grimm, the team-up? So yeah, that's the reasoning behind this. This is why I was doing Avengers Grimm Time Wars. And yeah, go see the Thunderbolts. I've heard it's great. I haven't seen it myself, but go see it and enjoy it. I hope everybody enjoys whatever they're seeing with this lately. And yeah, that's all I got on Avengers Grimm Time Wars. That's all I've got on the Game for a Movie podcast for this episode. Love Guru coming soon. And I've been Mike with the Game for a Movie podcast asking, are you game for a movie? We will see you next time on the Game for a Movie podcast. Bye.